AI and machine learning, they're both part of the solution in many cybersecurity products. The issue is that machine learning tends to take a lot of time. Cyber threats are moving quickly, so computers need to learn fast to stop them. Chuck Everette, the Director of Cybersecurity Advocacy at Deep Instinct, breaks down the difference between machine learning and deep learning. On this episode of IT Visionaries, Chuck contends that deep learning is essential to help ward off cybersecurity attacks. According to Chuck, video games were his initial entry point into cybersecurity as a career path, and let this be a reminder to all the parents out there, video games are not a waste of time. Enjoy this episode. IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by Salesforce Platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experiences, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform. Chuck, we do this for all of our guests, but right out the gate, can you tell our audience what is Deep Instinct and what do you do there?
Great question. All right, Deep Instinct is a cyber vendor that specializes in deep learning and applying it to cybersecurity. Currently, we're on the endpoint market, and basically what we do is we take an AI to the next level, looking at unknown threats, stuff that's never been seen before, and applying what's called our brain or our algorithm. We're able to detect and stop threats just like the human brain would. We can identify it, stop it, prevent it from even hitting the system sub 20 milliseconds. So it's kind of taking machine learning to that next level. My role at Deep Instinct, I've actually been here for almost 5 years now. I'm one of the first employees for North America. My current role right now is Director of Cybersecurity Advocacy. Basically, I'm company spokesman, I'm education. I work with a lot of different groups, a lot of different companies on talking about the security stack. What do they have there? I do a lot of lectures and speaking around what's the cybersecurity threat landscape looking like right now, what sophisticated attacks are coming out, those type of things. So a lot of it's just around education and getting, people up to speed of what's going on out there and the scary stuff, the stuff that can be prevented, as well as, what direction cybersecurity is going in the next couple of years.
Well, listen, for those of you who don't know Chuck and you follow him on LinkedIn or want to check him out on LinkedIn and follow what he's up to on LinkedIn, you might get scared because he does find a lot of articles about modern current event hacks because these things are certainly happening. They're in the news all the time. You kind of touched on Deep Instincts going down this path, which is almost like the holy grail, hopefully, of cybersecurity. This idea that it can teach itself. In the old days, I had to know what the threat was in order to program a defense against it. You're saying now you guys are going to preemptively recognize unknown threats. That's what you had just mentioned before. Talk about what goes into doing that, because the fact that you can do it at all is pretty impressive. The fact that you can make a decision on it, like you said, in sub 20 millisecond, that's banana land, right? So
exactly.
How does a system recognize something it's never seen before? I guess that's the magic question.
It is. And honestly, that's what a lot of times I get back from clients and prospects. Like, hey, this sounds like black magic. You're blowing smoke at me.
It doesn't sound right.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. As I said, I've been in cybersecurity for over 25 years. And the reason I'm at Deep Instinct is because this product is cutting edge. It's the future. That's why I'm here. As we know, right now you could be anywhere you wanted to within the cybersecurity space if you have the credentials, you've been there. I'm here because of this product. So what they've done is they've built a deep learning framework from the ground up. This isn't like image recognition that Google uses or self-driving that Tesla uses. This is their own framework built from the ground up specifically for cybersecurity. They train on hundreds of millions of different samples, and we train on raw data. So we don't have to label it, say this is good or benign. It actually learns on its own of what's good and what's bad, what's malicious. And we do it on PowerShell scripts, on different types of files across the board. And because of that training, and we've been doing this for well over 6 years now, our brain's gotten so intelligent, I can tell you adamantly that 0 of our clients last year experienced a ransomware attack. I've taken
that's crazy.
I know. You drop that bombshell there. I've taken the major IOCs out there, like for the major breaches that were out in the media. I've taken those IOCs, those indicators of compromise, ran them through our engine, but I ran them through with one of our brains that was actually 6 to 9 months old at the time. I did this everything from January 1st of last year till December 31st this past year. every single one of those major ones, we would have prevented it when nobody else did. Everybody else added them to their blacklist. They got them added into their models a week to 2 weeks later. We had it there. We would have prevented it 3, 4, 6 months beforehand. In some cases, even 9 months. So that's the power of deep learning and applying this. Other companies are trying to do it, but they've bought image recognition or facial recognition companies, and they're trying to apply it, and it doesn't work because you got to build it from the ground up.
Give us obviously you can't disclose everything, but give us an idea of what makes it different. Because you mentioned just a moment ago, it's like you used the word brain, like you ran it through the brain, right? So give us an idea of what like a series of things are you looking at that help Deep Instinct identify threats with better accuracy or quicker than other cybersecurity products?
Yeah. So it really comes down to literally our algorithm, or what we call our brain, mimics the human brain, literally does that, because it actually creates different layers and different neurons and how it connections. And so it's not a straight machine learning, hey, it's kind of, hey, if this happens, you do this. I kind of use the equation of the difference between the Terminator. He's got a directive. He goes this, he goes after John Connor. He does this. If it's there, he goes there, looks in the phone book, that type of stuff. With us, we just look at it and say, we look at the entire file, less than 20 milliseconds, to say, we know this is bad. Get out of here. It's not like the legacy signatures, like you said, you have to know something's bad beforehand. We know it because it's like, as a human, ask a 2-year-old to tell you the difference between a cat and a dog. They're going to get it right every single time. But you try and ask a computer to do that, even image recognition, they struggle with it. It's the same type of thing. And so it's just those nuances built in. And it's an advanced AI that's capable of making those decisions, but in milliseconds, to be able to decide, okay, is this malicious or not? And if it's malicious, I'm not letting it run. So we're actually doing a pre-execution as the file's being accessed or written to disk as it's being dropped by something, even like a lay of the land. Like we've seen quite a few of those ones out there where they're using the lay of the land, they're using the vulnerability to drop in the malicious files. We see that, we stop it, we even prevent it from even hitting there. So no matter if it was a misconfiguration where somebody left RDP open, as soon as they get in there, start running their tools, bingo, we shut it down. So that's the power of this. It doesn't need even like EDR where it looks for patterns and things happening. We don't need that. We shut it down before it even hits. And so we're actually eliminating a lot of the background noise and the noise and the alerts that go along with the lateral movement of it, because we're shutting it down. You don't have to execute it and start seeing, okay, is this happening? Okay, let me go out to the cloud, look at this, come back. Okay, in 20 minutes later, I'll let you know that this is bad. Or in 5 minutes later. It's already too late. Within 15 seconds, it's already sending out crypto worms and infecting other systems on your network. We shut it down before it even gets to that point. So it's taking our security SOC teams out there from being reactive to now being proactive. They can now prioritize their time, go after something. When they get an alert from us, our customers are saying, you know what, when I get an alert from Deep Instinct, that's a high fidelity alert. I need to go to that now. There are other systems, they're producing so many alerts per day. One of my customers said, hey, we get 70,000 alerts a day. We ignore them.
So let's dive into that great point you just made up, which is this idea of false negatives and or false positives. Either way, it can become it can be a problem, right? So if you're talking about endpoint security, if my application's in the cloud or a microservice in the cloud that my application relies on, if it's getting a false positive and I'm a customer, hey, I'm not going to be pleased because I can't execute my transaction. If it's getting a false negative and false negative is really bad. That means slipped and slipped through. If a false positive happens on the IT team or the cybersecurity team, that's a problem. Like you just said, 70,000 signals that aren't actually problems. Of course, if you hear 70,000 signals, you won't hear any signals. It'll effectively be in a useless system. How do you guys go about, I guess, what is the process or what's behind the engineering that helps mitigate false positives, false negatives?
Well, ultimately, it's the core of our product. It's our brain. It's that training on 250 million samples and understanding what's malicious and what's benign. To the point of Deep Instinct, we stand behind our product so much, and we see this across the board. We actually are the only ones in the world right now that are offering a false positive guarantee. Less than 0.1% false positives. We guarantee that. Money back guarantee. And also, too, we also have a ransomware warranty that's actually built in, that's backed by an insurance company for $3 million. If you get hit with ransomware, we have a $3 million warranty. That's how confident we are in our product. And going through getting those certifications and getting those warranty backups in place, we had to go through a huge certification project and testing And everybody's come out and said, there's nothing else like this on the market. We've never seen this before.
Oh, that's pretty cool. The way you guys are selling it kind of reminds me of, do you remember back in the day, LifeLock, where the guy was like, hey, this is my social security number. But selling through, making promises through guarantees is pretty cool. This space is not going away. We've talked to many people in this space, and the amount of threats and the amount of advanced threats that keep happening, it's never going to stop, right? Like arguably today is going to be the least sophisticated day of attacks in the next 10 years, which is weird to think about, right? But the attackers themselves. Give us an idea of what's happening in the industry. Like how are cybersecurity experts, yourself, other companies, how is the industry, where is it starting to focus? You mentioned yours is on endpoint security. You're focusing on machine learning to basically educate itself and figure out what it needs to do to protect things. Do you see that? It's where all cybersecurity companies are going? Is it going to be tackled that way? What are some changes that you think might be imminent to that companies are going to have to start implementing in order to protect themselves?
Well, first we're going to talk about, the cybersecurity strategy. And I definitely see the threats out there, and the threat landscape is constantly evolving. It's getting more sophisticated. We're seeing it where nation states, their tools that they're using, like we've seen from the NSA tools, from the Snowden, as well as to Russia, the SolarWinds, as well as other ones, we're seeing those toolkits getting in the hands of the common criminal gangs. And they're utilizing those out. And so as soon as a lot of times a breach comes out, it's reverse engineered, and they've added that in. We've also seen now where cyber criminals are actually running their own machine learning, what we're calling adversarial AI. They're running through their own agents saying, okay, hey, you know what? I'm going after this target. I know they're running Sentinel-1 or CrowdStrike. Let me run it through my machine learning engine to see what I can do to get by their stuff so it looks like my packages are benign. If I need to space this out, or hey, I can only do one action every 2 minutes, those type of things. So we're seeing that adversarial AI come into play now. Not only the nation states are using it, but the common criminals are. Where deep learning has come into, we've actually built our product around not being able to be susceptible to that. We're naturally immune to it because we actually train on poison data. We actually train on those type of things. We're able to recognize and see that, and we stop it. So that's one huge trend that we're seeing, is that the cyber criminals are using their own AI. AI is the future, but the problem is that the more AI you get there, the more false positives you get, and the more noise you get, the more it takes cybersecurity professionals to look at the console, eyes on glass, to figure out, okay, what are the patterns, what are the trends here? Some of the AI is getting better at putting that together, but the problem is it takes, cyber criminals are more patient these days. So they're getting into systems and they're sitting there for days, weeks, or even sometimes months, and they're moving very slowly. They're putting backdoors in, they're obfuscating themselves. They're putting in other obvious things. Hey, how do you respond to this? You respond over here. Okay, I'm going to go over here now and do this because you don't seem to notice it. They're doing that more and more. So how do you detect it? How do you get that? And that's prevent the first attack coming in. So using an AI, an advanced AI like our deep learning, is the direction. It is the future.
Think of the future. If we're all using, if I'm a criminal and I've written a program that can learn and think, and you've written a program that can learn and think, well, what is it like? Are we just I'm sending you an attack, you send me a block. I change my attack, you send me a block. I change my attack. Like this will never end. This will never end until I guess you figure out that I guess, because like you said, the bad actors themselves are very patient. So they're not going to do a series of attacks. Like there's not going to come at you with 1,000. Remember when you used to have to get your systems pen tested and they would just
people still have to. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, I think we just turned the block on for this 1 hour and it's over.
Well, I mean, look at North Korea. North Korea just got caught putting job postings out there looking for pen testers and hiring them to actually hack into systems, banking systems as pen testers. Yeah, we're seeing that type of stuff on a continuous basis. But you're right. It's going to be a constant cat and mouse getting in front of it. And that's machine learning. And that's where deep learning has such a huge barrier to entry because you got to build it from the ground up and build from there. It's going to take a while, and cyber criminals are not going down that path. They just don't have the resources at this time to be able to do that. So deep learning is completely different than machine learning. Deep learning is the one machine learning is where it takes months sometimes. On a minimum, I'm seeing from the graphs and that when a new attack vector comes out, like there was just one that came out 3 weeks ago, and Once it came out publicly, everybody blacklisted it. The old, blacklisting the hash. But the attack itself and the variants and the modifications and the mutations, the polymorphic part of it, still got through everywhere. They had to go back and rework the machine learning models in order to prevent that. And it took, on average, I'm not going to say names here, but some of the, the major, Fortune 10 out there that does this stuff, it took them almost 3 weeks to get it down. And they just came out with it yesterday. Other companies, it took them 7 to 14 days before they reworked the machine learning models. One critical thing about deep instinct in the deep learning we're doing, our brains and how often we have to put out an update, 4 times a year. You can be completely disconnected and we'll prevent 0 days, 4 months now with a brain. Most of our clients are running with brains or algorithms that are months old because it doesn't need to be updated because it's like the human brain. And that is a huge game changer. You don't need to be connected to the web. You don't have to be connected to the net or the cloud to get your daily updates.
So give us an idea, one of the things, I'm sure that we have some people that are listening to this show right now that may not fully understand the delta between deep learning and machine learning. So can you share the difference, making a more common example that maybe we can use? I like the idea of image recognition because I fully understand that.
Yep.
I used to work at a social media management software company. I remember back in the day when we tried to help brands find photos on Instagram. If we said, like you just said, find a ball. Well, it might bring back a plate, or it would bring back anything that looked like a circle. I was like, these aren't, this is not a ball, right? And so this was at its infancy, and it took a long time to program, just as you suggested. Yep. By the way, kangaroos and dogs look very similar too. The machine can't figure it out unless they can see its legs. But what we understood of machine learning at the time was obviously in its infancy. Give us an idea of what the difference is between machine learning and deep learning, because I think this is a fascinating subject that a lot of people don't quite recognize how much they can recognize with their human eyes in a split second compared to what would need to program a machine to recognize.
Exactly. So the biggest differential is the data input you do yourself. So for machine learning, you have to actually go through, say, if you're going to take a car and you're going to categorize it, break it down to parts and pieces, you have to go through and say, these are wheels. This is a body. This is a bumper. This is, a window. You have to break it down, categorize it, start feeding it into the model. And then after a while, it will start picking up on that. It will make it be, you show it a picture of a car and it will be able to break it down. Wheels, this, that, and even then start telling the difference between, a truck and a car, just don't throw in an El Camino, you'll confuse the heck out of it. That's kind of the basic right there. And it uses very limited data sets and and it's what's called supervised learning. You can even do unsupervised learning, and that's after it's kind of gotten picked up. Where deep learning goes in and literally you start feeding pictures in and it actually self-categorizes. It starts picking it up within a matter of hours and days. It takes its accuracy from being, 10, 15% to over 99% within 3-4 days of doing that. And those are common models. And so they're applying it to cancer image recognition. They're actually able to see cancer or an oncologist or them to go and look at it, and they're able to predict and see the cancer better in the margins better than a doctor can. That's some of the stuff. They've also taken deep learning and applied it to pharmaceutical students. Have taken it, fed the stuff into it with all these different ingredients, and it actually came back with new drugs that have never been seen before, and they've been able to run with. So as I said, deep learning is literally almost being creative in a sense. It's able to be creative, say, okay, what's the difference here? What's going on? And how do I put these in my own categories? And it's able to see that and do that.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to think about what the future's going to hold.
The analogy between dogs and cats is one of the easiest one to kind of see there and talk about. They're all fuzzy. They all have whiskers. They have eyes. Very subtle differences. But as I said, a 2-year-old can do it. Same thing with deep learning can do it in milliseconds. Yeah,
the idea that you can see like you said, a CT scan or a CAT scan or whatever scan is used, and you can recognize something can recognize a cancerous cell versus, the human eye and people, we can't recognize it until it's like a cluster, and we can only process so much information. So imagine running an EMR, an electronic medical record, through a deep learning system and instantly being like, that's cancerous, that's cancerous, that's cancerous, this person's that's cancer. And it's like, we already know this about cancer, right? The earlier it can be detected, the more likely the survival rate is. And that's the nuance of at the molecular level. This is like the idea of applying it at the code level, which is crazy to think. One of the things that people always fear for in machine learning artificial learning, deep learning, whatever the categories, is this idea that people will become replaced. But someone has to program the machine. The brain needs to be programmed, because even though it is learning on its own, you guys are still bringing inputs in. Do you see a place where machines will teach themselves, or will it always be in a limited capacity where people will need to keep programming them?
Eventually, machines can definitely, I don't want to say self-learning, but basically it's gotten to the point now like where we just continuously feed in huge amounts of raw data. I mean, we have large numbers of threat researchers. They're constantly going out there. They're searching the dark web. They're looking for stuff. They've joined other groups. They're pulling in stuff, new threats to feed into this, to see what our brain thinks of it and to train it. And in those very few cases where we've ever had a false negative, where we don't meet something, okay, why is that? We'll actually take that, mutate that 1,000 times, add that into our model and get that there and see, okay, we'll figure out, okay, why is this? Just in the past month, I've seen 2 brand new attacks that we've never seen before. We prevented them, luckily. But since I've been here for 5 years, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen a false negative actually get biased. And it was because of shell code injections, those type of things that we didn't have built out yet. Now that we have, in-memory protection and shell code, arbitrary shell code, those type of things, we're able to see that type of stuff. And it was basically those newer attacks, taking in a new, fileless-based stuff. You're running only in memory, never writing to disk. How do you prevent against that? And so those are the type of things that you always have to have engineers there to help. Okay, functions and features, or these new vectors are coming in. A lot of it, the code's is still the same on the backside, but it's coming in from a new vector. And a lot of times you have to be there to help program that. But also, too, you got to be validated. You have to validate. If we're not there testing our product on a daily basis, pulling down the latest threats and validating, we'd just be waiting for customers to phone in and saying, hey, you know what, this isn't working. And that's not what we're doing. We're constantly in front of it. So we actually spend more time validating and making sure our product is working properly and optimally. As I said, we've had 0 successful ransomware attacks in the past year.
There you go. That's pretty intense. I also want to dive into your background a little bit so that our audience can get to understand how you got into this field. So, let's start with that exact question. How did you get involved in security to begin with? What was it, an interest of yours at a very early age, or did you kind of fall into it by chance? Give us an idea how you ended up in the cybersecurity realm.
Yeah. Honestly, to start off, I was, in college, I was big time geek. I'll date myself here. Thin nets. Basically, we were doing, networks throughout the campus, running coaxial cables and terminators, that type of stuff, playing Duke Nukem and Warcraft back in the day, doing local LANs. School ended up putting in a LAN, and we helped, talk to them and built it out. Next thing you know, I'm running the program in college. And then after that, I was with Kraft Foods and got on the automation side, and then segmentation between, PLCs, automation and office networks. And then from there, it kind of built out from firewalls from there. Went on to the state and the government, building out and designing massive IP networks for different things, worked for some different government agencies. Then I went to the finance space. I ran a 60-person SOC for 80% of United States ACH traffic, working directly with Homeland Security and Cyber Command on some of the major breaches that we've had historically. I've been involved in the backside of that. And then naturally from there, I went over into the vendor space, and then I was with Carbon Black until they IPO'd, and then this product offering, I kind of stick with who has the best product on the offering on the market right now, what's going on, what the direction, and what can I do to help steer that and grow the product.
So give us an idea. I'd love to understand what fascinated you the most about cybersecurity, because it sounded like you were, when you were in college, you're running networks, dropping line, making sure your war gaming is up and running as fast as possible. Yep. But what was fascinating specifically about cybersecurity that you were like, oh man, I want to go down this path? Because obviously you had a lot of paths to choose at that point.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it came from actually in college. Once we got the network up and running, realizing, hey, you know what? Our bandwidth was being chewed up by Napster back in the day. How do we filter this down? So it's getting into the firewalls and getting the routing, and then all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, now we're being attacked. Okay, let's set up some honeypots. And so a lot of it was just cat and mouse games, learning about it. And then from there, I went into the finance side and I got into the compliance and PCI audits, FFIEC, and it became a natural if we're basically networking, all past the networking, kind of lead down that security path, because you always have in the back of your mind, what are your IP routes, where are you going to, where you're looking at your firewall rules. And it just it built from there. So, kind of just natural progression from IT, building computers, to networking, and then network security, and then compliance, and then overall, security in general, and it's just kind of grown from there.
Yeah. I'm also assuming this is this particular industry, the level of, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, but like, it's almost like, it's kind of intense. It's like a game itself, right? It's an intense industry because you are the good guys, you're trying to stop the bad guys, and there's constant change. So like every person I've talked to in the cybersecurity space kind of alludes to the fact that it requires like almost like a desire to win. It's almost like sports. Like you're always trying to win. Every day you're trying to win the day.
Well, you're trying to win, or you're trying to you keep your head above water. Literally, that's what it comes down to a lot of times. But it is. But it's security. There's so many different facets of it. Even the gray area, the purple team. Hey, you know what? I want to try attacking. I want to be like we talked about pen testing. You want to try and attack and see who comes back with that. You want physical security. Hey, can I jump your fence, get in, and put a USB drive in? There's different aspects of it that appeals to just about anybody. So you want to be the good guy. You want to be hero, the defender. Absolutely. You want to be one of the attackers and test the defenses. You can do that, or you can be in the middle of watching for it and say, hey, you know what? I caught you. Or you can be climb the ladder like I have and be one of those senior leaders sitting back and helping direct the chess pieces and saying, hey, I can see the trend we're going from here. Where's our risk mitigation? I don't need as much resources here. Let me move my resources over here. Especially right now, in the US, there's over 500,000 open security professional positions right now. Globally, there's over 5 million.
Yeah,
the latest estimates. So people are a lot of times moving around. They're looking for greener pastures, those type of things. It's how do you retain your employees? How do you keep it there? And at the same time, how do you keep your system secure with all this churn going on? So
that's a good question. How do you do it?
Yeah, exactly. Getting the caliber employee you want and then keeping them satisfied and figuring out what makes them tick. And that's exactly what it is. Hey, what do you enjoy? Do you enjoy sitting there staring at a screen all day? No. What do you enjoy doing? Let's do it there. Let's make it better. What can we do to make your job better and easier and and take it to the next level? Give them sense of ownership. And a lot of times, that just intrigues people. If you just have somebody sitting there eyes on glass staring in and responding to alerts, and most of the alerts are false positive, they're going to get burnt out. They're not going to want to stay there.
Makes total sense. Hey, I can tell you have a serious passion for this. I can see why Deep Instinct wants you on the road talking for this, man. You get fired up from people to the actual process to the industry. You get fired up. Chuck, it was awesome having you today on IT Visionaries. But before you go, it is time for the lightning round. The lightning round is brought to us by Salesforce Platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Chuck, this is where we ask you questions outside of the realm of work so our audience can get to know you a little better. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. You mentioned gaming early on. Are you still a gamer?
I'm still a gamer. There's like a 49-inch Samsung G9 behind me. Still play my games. A lot of massive multiplayer online stuff, MechWarrior, those type of things. So absolutely.
So I'm not as familiar with MechWarrior. I'm assuming this is like a those giant.
Giant robots.
They look like RoboCop 2?
Yep. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Big time. Yeah. Like 10-story tall robots. Yeah. Lasers and ballistic weapons. Yeah.
That's awesome. And for those of you that are not watching the YouTube version, you're just listening to the podcast, Chuck has like a tricked out setup. I'm looking at him, looking back at me. He's got soundproofing on his walls. He's got, I don't know what that is in the back. It looks like a blue. It looks like a sound equalizer on the board. Give us an idea. Describe why is your setup so nice? I mean, it just looks so nice. It looks like a studio grade setup. Talk about that.
It's because, I do a lot of public speaking, and because of the pandemic, a lot of stuff is shifted to virtual. And I wanted to make sure I had a nice quality setups for just like a podcast like this, so people can see myself and hear myself. You're not distracted by that. So I want to make sure good lighting, that type of stuff. Also, too, this is kind of like my little mini man cave. I got kids too. I got a 12 and 9-year-old, and we'll come in here and play games, and without having to wake up the rest of the house. So it just gives us a place to come in. I have multiple monitors, multiple systems, and also too, I got my lab here too. So I got my black lab where I can detonate, ransomware, that type of stuff safely. And you need some place to do that, and might as well give it a nice aesthetic also.
Oh man, I love how you live and breathe. Like you literally just mixed fun with work. If you didn't catch what Chuck just said, he has his own Skunkworks lab where he drops ransomware and other things at it. Now I'm curious, when you first joined Deep Instinct, did you try to penetrate a Deep Instinct protected system to see how good it was?
I'll be quite honest. I actually met Guy Caspi, our CEO, in Las Vegas. I got called several times by these guys. I had put them off for about 6 to 9 months. I wasn't interested in talking to them. They were hounding me. Finally got a hold of me, a recruiter, and said, hey, you know what? Guy Caspi wants to talk to you. I see that you're at RSA, RSA, Black Hat. I see you're at Black Hat in Vegas. He's there too. Can you spare an hour to talk to him? So I did. I spared an hour. I sat down with a guy. We ended up talking for 2.5 hours. And he convinced me, okay, let me take a look at this. I was extremely skeptical. I'm like, there's no way they can do what they're saying they can do. So I signed an NDA, got my hands on the software, did some stuff, tore it apart, and I was floored. I was flabbergasted. I spent over a week trying to penetrate and do stuff, given the product was still maturing and just coming out of stealth mode. But still, the promise of what it had and what it could do, I was floored, and I was set. I'm like, okay, guys, sign me up with this small Israeli company that I'd never heard of. Let me go from carbon black. They're getting ready to IPO. Let me come over here because I believe in this product.
That is awesome. Listen, I like how you just revealed, hey, your work and your personal fun kind of just intermixes a little. Like, I love the fact that you have this skunkworks lab that you constantly go at, that you leverage. What else do you like to do outside of the world of work? So when you're not hacking your own systems or playing games, what else do you like to do?
I said, I got 2 boys. I got a 9 and 12-year-old, so we're allowed to do stuff, but we're really big into 3D printing right now. I got a 3D printing lab separate. I got 7 printers, everything from, resin-based printers to filament-based printers, trying different things. We're actually printing out a life-size R2-D2 right now. So we're working on the Arduinos and the electronics to make that work, the remotes. So there's some user groups out there where you're able to print out the stuff and build it. So we're working on that right now. I got 2 printers right now, printing out the parts and pieces for that. So it should be done hopefully the next month or so.
Okay. I have 2 sons as well, just about the same. They're 13 and 9, although my 9-year-old's about to age up to 10. So I'm right in your wheelhouse in regards to age. I can promise you my kids are not doing something productive like that. I think they're mostly like fighting each other with Nerf war.
Oh, we got plenty of that. My wife threatened to kill me if I brought home another Nerf gun for these guys. So, by the way, don't do the hypers. They leave welts, and I suffer most of them. Oh.
I don't even know what a hyper Nerf gun is, but if you're telling me it leaves a welt, I'm not buying that. Because let me tell you something, my kids also have bad aim because I've been hit as an innocent bystander. That looks like a rubber bullet.
They're the rubber bullets that shoot out, and they come out like 300 feet per second, and they leave red welts. Trust me, my kids love these. I hate them. I've hit them all now. But you can see they're laying around my office. I'll be sitting here. Next thing I'll know, I'll get hit 3 times.
Well, hopefully that doesn't. Actually, I would like that to happen because that'd be kind of funny, but I don't. Chuck, it was awesome having you on the show today. Thanks for sharing all of your stories and some of the future that is available to us with deep learning as part of the cybersecurity industry. And, you painted an interesting picture. I got it. What else can I say? Our audience, we have to cheer for people like you. Like you guys have to win because I don't want to go to bed every night knowing that something of my money, my information, I don't want to know that I'm going to get hacked. So you got to win.
That you're exactly right. When I talk to CISOs and CIOs, I ask them, what do you fear most? And they're like, waking up in the morning and find out that I've been breached. And our customers adamantly tell us across the board. You can go out, Gartner peer reviews. You can see our customers are saying they can sleep at night. They don't worry about it any longer. And that's exactly why we're here.
Oh yeah. You hit it the nail on the head because some of these companies that have been hacked in the past, like they like reveal it well after like 1 million plus records have been, compromised or whatever the case may be. But it literally took them that long to notice. Like they didn't notice as it was happening. It's like, over 1 million, because you said it like it's like slow. Like these worms, these new programs are slow and they're patient. And they're like,
well, especially the cyber espionage. It sits in the systems for years. Where one company went into and found out that there was a nation state. Actually, every time they drop a new design into their printers, their silicon printers, it was being stolen. It was literally shipping straight out to an APAC country immediately, and it had been happening for years. They had no clue.
It's insanity.
Yep.
It is insanity. All right, Chuck. Thanks for sharing everything. Like we said, hey, you got a lot of people on this show cheering for you and you guys got to win because I want to know that all my stuff's protected.
We're going to win. We're maturing and shaping the market. It's, people are starting to believe us. And that's the problem is we have a very unbelievable story. And more people are seeing, some of the major stuff and leap forwards we've made this past year is taking us to that next level.
We look forward to seeing the growth, man. That's exciting.
Absolutely.